This program contains true stories of rescues. All of the 911 calls you will hear are real. Whenever possible, the actual people involved have helped us reconstruct the events as they happened.
For Mary Jo Keller, the Thanksgiving holidays in 1988 were special because they brought her entire family together again. But when everyone gathered from around the country at the family ranch in Salmon, Idaho, they never imagined a holiday celebration would test their faith in miracles.
It was the first time that we had all been together in about 5 years. My mom and dad are divorced, and it was a really jubilant experience to have us all as a family again.
The family had decided to take advantage of being together by celebrating Christmas early. Late in the afternoon, Mary Jo's youngest brother, 16-year-old Will Barton, volunteered to go out and get a Christmas tree.
He was very, very athletic, and that was very important to him. And he was just starting to get into what life was all about.
My little brothers were starting to grow up, getting big enough that, you know, it was fun to anticipate all the activities that we could do together. But I didn't wake up that morning prepared to rescue Will.
Remember all the trees that we saw over the hill? Yeah. I know we're over there. We can go down that valley. Yeah, I think there's some good.
Will drove up into the hills with his high school friend, Matt Koppelman, to look for the best tree to cut down.
I went out for wrestling, and he was also in wrestling, and he, you know, became a good friend to me that way. We went up to, like, the top corner of the ranch, and it was kind of sparse in that area.
Bunch of big trees.
There was a high tree that was, that had a good top on it, and Will decided to go up and climb it and cut off the top, you know, the first 7 feet or so. And it was probably about 35 feet up, maybe 40. But he was determined to go up this tree anyway.
It's easy to see the mistakes afterwards, because in the middle of November, they're slippery and they're brittle, and you've got more clothes on than you used to, and don't climb a tree.
Some branches break, and I looked up, and I just saw him falling. He told me he couldn't move his arms and legs, and he couldn't feel anything. So I knew that it had to be a back or neck injury, and that I wasn't supposed to move him. But he then told me that he was having difficulties breathing, and I had to take his legs and swing him around so that he could breathe with more ease.
How loud can you scream?
I can't.
You gotta get help there.
Okay. Here, I'll put my coat on you. It's okay. Here.
You gotta hurry.
It was getting dark, it was cold out, but I had to leave him. not knowing whether I would be able to find him again.
When Matt came back to the house and started describing that he wasn't moving at all and just barely able to whisper, Julie right away said it sounds like a spinal injury.
Listen, okay. Need a board?
Will's sister, Julie Myers, was a registered nurse.
My biggest fear was if it is a spinal cord injury, it could swell and he could quit breathing. And the only thought that I had was, we've got to get over there quick.
Will's brother, John, also rushed to help.
The first thing that went through my head is, Will's going to freeze to death if he's not dead already. It was just, you know, if we can find him, we might be able to save him. If we can't, he's gone. Matt wasn't very familiar with the ranch, so, you know, your heart just sinks and you're going, what do you mean? You know, you think you know where he's from. Where is he? Well, he's over there. And you're just going, well, you know, there's 25 miles over there that it could be.
When we continue.
The only sound you can hear are other people calling William's name. And I remember the loneliness thinking, oh, you know, what if we don't find him?
It had been nearly 2 hours since 16-year-old Will Barton had fallen 40 feet from the top of a tree. Family members combed miles of the ranch, searching for the spot where he lay with no idea how injured he might be. But as darkness set in and temperatures plunged below freezing, his sister was losing hope that her youngest brother would still be alive when they found him.
Mom was saying everything's going to be fine. He's not going to be that serious. And I tried to believe her, but I couldn't believe her because it just had that feeling. It's like time skips a beat, and when it resumes beating, your life's changed.
Where are we going to cross, guys?
Let's go right here.
It was really dark outside. It was cold, probably 15 degrees below zero with the wind chill factor. But we didn't notice the cold.
Matt, where is he?
Let's go.
We had that whole mountain where he could be, and, you know, we panned out and we started running, and were we in the right spot? Just the anxiety of not knowing was the worst.
Bill? Bill!
We thought, well, maybe we could follow footprints, but there were footprints all over the mountain because they'd been traipsing back and forth trying to find the perfect tree.
William!
The only sound you can hear are other people calling William's name, hoping for a sound. And I remember the loneliness thinking, oh, you know, what if we don't find him?
Will! Will! William!
I heard him from a little ways off, and I kind of stumbled right onto him.
Will?
You got it, John?
Down here!
Hey.
Is he alive? Blanket on him. Hey, Rick.
That blanket on.
He looked real white. His pulse was real slow. He was real cold. He looked really bad.
We need to move everybody here, put the board here. Brad, let me change places with you. Guys?
You moving?
Yes, I gotta hold his shoulders.
I put my hands underneath his shoulders and put his head in between my arms. And I held onto his neck and head and shoulders while they moved him onto the board and straightened him out.
I can't feel nothing.
Got it?
Yeah, I got it. How are we gonna get him out of here?
We all looked up the mountain and realized there was no way we were going to get him back up the mountain.
Dang, you're heavy, William.
Will's family decided to carry him out a longer, more indirect route that would avoid the steepest slope.
We didn't take time to realize how bad he was. We just knew we had to get him out of there and do it as carefully as possible.
I'm going up that mountain, trying to carry him like that. It wasn't more than 50 yards, and we were every one of us were totally exhausted.
Okay. You want to trade places?
Yeah, let's switch.
Switch?
Right here.
We were so tired and so exhausted and so cold, we couldn't carry him anymore, and so we stopped.
Give him a blessing.
Okay, let's do.
Okay.
We all knelt around him, and we said a family prayer for him.
William Elmer Barton, we bless you to have the strength to make the hospital.
My family is really religious, and I'm kind of the black sheep, but something clicked.
We say in the name of Jesus Christ, amen.
I stood up, and it was just like, you know, my back doesn't hurt anymore. I can't feel my arms. I grabbed the front of that board, lifted it up, and humped up out of there.
By the time they managed to get Will back to the house, more than 2 hours had passed since he fell.
I ran out to see how serious it was, and I could tell that there was terror in all their eyes.
Call the hospital! Have a doctor waiting!
I just stepped out of the car and fell into Mom's arms and just started crying and said, Mom, he's not okay.
Okay.
When they got to the hospital, the family's physician, Dr. Boyd Simmons, was there to meet them.
He was completely paralyzed in all 4 extremities. We got an x-ray of his neck, and it showed a fracture and a dislocation of his neck.
He has a fracture.
It didn't appear from x-rays like there was an awful lot of room for his spinal cord to go down the spinal canal. And so I really expected the worst.
Will was placed in traction and airlifted 90 miles to a trauma center in Missoula, Montana. His father, Walt Barton, who had left the ranch 2 days before, drove for 12 hours through a blizzard to see his son at the hospital.
I can remember the hurt that I felt all the way to Missoula. In fact, I cried 90% of the time. I just kept saying to myself, why? To think that a fine young boy like that with all that potential, all of a sudden everything had come to a screeching halt.
Neurosurgeon Henry Gary told them that surgery might be the only way to realign Will's spine. But because the procedure itself was risky, Dr. Gary wanted to wait 24 hours to see if traction alone would work.
The whole family decided, and anyone that even knew us, decided to fast and pray for William. And it started at 6 o'clock in the evening, and at 6:30, the breathing therapist came in to pump William's lungs up to make them work. At that point, something popped in his neck.
You okay? You all right?
And it scared the breathing therapist to death.
Probably had enough for tonight.
The vertebrae had lined back up, and they did not have to do surgery.
But again, you can see the alignment is almost normal.
Even though the vertebrae had realigned, Will still had no feeling from the neck down. His prognosis for recovery was not good.
At that point, they diagnosed him as a quadriplegic. He would never walk again, and he would probably never feed himself again.
We had to turn him every 45 minutes to keep the circulation going and keep him from getting bed sores.
I just remember something. You're one of those tough Barton boys.
He couldn't move a finger, and it was just mortifying to see him laying there.
There was nothing Mary Barton could do to lift her son's spirits.
William really got depressed, and he would just lay there, staring at the ceiling, and I asked him what was happening, and he says, I'm just practicing being a vegetable. What's happening? He says, if you love me, you'd do something really special for me. And I says, what are you talking about, Will? What do you want me to do? He said, just put a pillow over my face and take me out of my misery.
Let me know if you feel dizzy or uncomfortable, hot, sweaty. Okay.
Will began attending daily physical therapy.
Can't breathe.
What, is he all right? He doesn't have a heartbeat. What's happening?
The one nurse was breathing in his lungs, and he started breathing again.
Will?
Are you okay, Will?
I
remember the nurses rushing around me, panicking, trying to, they were trying to get a pulse, and I started to see a bright light and the most beautiful garden you've ever seen.
It's slow, Shelley.
That was the turning point in my whole recovery, because it was my choice to be here. I would have bad days after that, but I never wished I hadn't have made that choice. I'm glad I did.
His condition slowly improved, but doctors held out little hope that he'd ever walk again.
It was about late February. He said, I feel really strange. What I want you to do is I want you to pull me up and hold me. He says, I want to stand up.
Phil, what do you want me to do now? Try to step back. Step back? Yeah, I think I can stand.
And all of a sudden I felt the weight of his body relaxing, and I felt him starting to take on some of the weight that he had. And before it was over with, he was standing there pretty much by himself.
Hey, man, look at that. I can stand.
By the following Christmas, Will Barton and his family had reason to celebrate.
I had to relearn to walk, but I was determined to work as hard as I could.
Sure you will. There you go, bud.
It seemed a lot like being a baby again and having to relearn to use your muscles, and you fall down a lot and get scraped up, and you just carry on.
Walking pretty fast. Throw on the old Chevy, Rick. They tutored him. He came back, and he graduated with his high school class. There were over 5,000 people in that stadium. And Will walked down that aisle and received his diploma.
Good seeing you guys.
He's worked hard. First one toe and then one finger.
Not quite as good as mine, but it'll do.
And he is progressing, and I know that he will get well.
Hands up here, get some warm, JP.
He probably can improve with additional practice to a certain level. But it's a very rare case, one that has a little happier ending than others.
William has been such an inspiration to the family from the standpoint of strength, from a standpoint of being able to accept, from a standpoint of seeming to just bring the family unit closer together.
Before, I was very athletic, and things of the world were, that's what mattered. After my accident, I was very appreciative of what I had. Just motion, getting up from one place and moving to another place. It's a really big thing. My family helped me a lot in my recovery, and I realized it's the family that matters the most.
Cool.